I've been doing that the whole time. Well, hi, everybody. We're going to start again because we didn't realize we were muted. Thanks for your patience.
Just so you know, we did a stunning rendition
Paul's
of the
getting
Star
a good-
Spangled Banner to open. You guys missed it.
It was
Four-part harmony. Eileen killed it, I gotta tell you. She
Yeah,
killed
I
it.
can hit that high A. man.
All right. It must be Friday. I should go home now. Thanks, everybody. We're going to do this again. Welcome, everybody, to our June 16th, 2022 PBAC meeting. We already did one lovely introduction in this room, but we'll go ahead and do it one more time.
We'll go the other way from right.
We'll go the other way to spice it up a little bit, just to spice things up and make sure we can get it on the video for our minutes and everything. So my name is Kara Haley. I work for the city of Pullman, current PBAC chair, and clearly forgot to hit the unmute button. So let's go this way to Brian.
Brian Johnson with you, Brian.
Jeff Lanigan, WC Facilities.
Maybe
Jean Elliott, Conservative Community Member.
David Hall, Ladau County resident and SDG member.
Tyler Palmer, City of Moscow representative and PBAC vice chair.
Eileen McCall, Pullman City Council and PBAC representative.
All right, thank you, everybody, for humoring me. We're going to try this again and move to the virtual world, starting with Mr. Steve Robichon.
Steve Robichon, PBAC.
Tom Lamar, Latah County Commissioner.
Okay, hold on, everyone. We don't seem to have sound. Do we? What am I doing
I
wrong?
see Tom talking, but we can't see, hear anything.
Yeah, now he sees that he can hear us and we can't hear them. All right, well, today I thought we
Go
were
to the-
so ready. At least we don't have to do it a third time and you guys at least heard us.
That's the,
Let's try, should I try this one?
Well, that's, so the one that it has
Speakers?
selected is this one.
Tom, do you want to try talking again? Yeah, can you hear me?
There we go.
Come out of the speaker up
It's
there.
coming out of that speaker. I
It's
just
been
moved
2
it.
years and we've
Okay.
been doing this meetings and we still can't get on to work. Tom
Okay, we got it.
Tom Lamar, Latah County Commissioner.
All right, thank you, Tom. You are the first person we've heard in virtual world.
Yay.
Thank you. Yay. Okay, now let's move to Steve Robichon. Maybe.
Steve Robichon, PBAC.
All right, thank you, Steve. Paul Kimmel.
Hi, Paul Kimmel, Latah County representative.
All right, you look like you're en route. Tom Handy.
Yeah, Tom Handy, Whitman County Commissioner.
Let's try Gina.
Hi, Gina Terusio, Moscow City Council.
Right, and I see Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle Richmond with Idaho Department of Water Resources.
Awesome. And we have Colt.
Hi, Colt Shelton with JUB Engineers.
Okay, and we have Allison.
Allison Lebeda with the Nez Perce Tribe Water Resources Division.
All right, fabulous. And I know Rusty Vineyard's going to join us shortly. He had something he had to take care of. And Tim let me know that he was not going to be here today as well. So it does look like we have all of our entities represented today, which is fabulous. And again, thanks all for your patience as we work through some technology challenges there. We'll go ahead and move into our second agenda item, which is approval of the meeting minutes from May 19th, 2022. Mr. Steve Robichon sent those out with the agenda. I'd take a motion or
Madam
discussion.
Chair, I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the May 19th, 2022 minutes, say aye or raise your hand.
I
Okay, any opposed? Now that we know everybody can hear us and we'll actually hear you. So, all right, minutes have passed. We'll move on to item number 3, public comment for items not on the agenda. So I will open that up to the room and the virtual world to see if there are any. Jean?
Yes, I would just like to request the notifications of the meetings can sometimes be difficult
for some reason, I was unable to get onto the PBAC website, policebasin.org, I believe. Both through Google and Edge. And I also asked a research librarian to try to get onto it, and he was unable to as well. The newspaper on the weekend edition said that the meeting was at the Pullman City Hall, excuse me. So that could use a little continuous quality improvement there with letting the public be more aware of how to participate with these meetings.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jean.
And I also I've had trouble getting onto policebasin.org in the past, even when we had the executive director. I don't know if there's some interface issue or whether it's me or what, but I assume if the librarian can't get on there either, then.
Okay, I know I was on it yesterday and it was coming through, but I haven't been on it today.
Print off any documents or read any documents.
Okay.
But I did speak to someone with Pullman City Hall, I believe, and she said something about she wasn't able to get on through Google, but she was through Edge, but I was not able to through Microsoft Edge.
Okay.
So I'm not techie enough to know what could be
It is pulling up right now on my phones. We'll check on that though.
Yeah.
We'll verify that.
I think sometimes the links can be weird if you don't type in exactly or previous Google searches.
And ancillary to that, thank you, Jean, is the
I can't even find it.
Pullman City calendar and the Pullman community update, two separate things, are probably still anticipating that we're going every other. So that needs to be checked. And these are the kind of little hitchy glitchy things that with the new city website that we're trying to track down. So it's really important that you mention that and bring that up.
Which newspaper was that or what?
The Daily News.
It was in the
it's on
Daily News.
weekend edition, all the
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah, I will cross check
It
about that.
says Blue Space and Aquifer Committee, Thursday, 2 p.m. Pullman City Hall.
Okay. The other thought I have geared towards that, when our new PBAC executive director gets on board, I'm hopeful she can I think Corey sent out a list to maybe some of the people that were not just the committee members, but on the email server. So we'll work to rectify that and make it a lot cleaner process when we have somebody who's working full-time and is going to be able to do that. And we'll check the papers as well. Like I said, I was also on the website yesterday, so I know it was kind of working, but browsers can be tricky.
I was at a university computer, so it wasn't the lack of power with the computer or anything,
Sure.
I didn't think.
Sure.
We'll check
But
into
unable
it.
to open.
There's
Yeah, we'll check on that.
And
I've got a
ahead.
suggestion on that. The site isn't secure. And so there's probably a lot of browsers that are blocking insecure sites.
yeah,
I'll bet you're right, Tom.
that's probably why the UI one didn't work, is it wasn't secure
Yeah.
or something.
So the university computer is intentionally not letting people open it up. Is that
Could
it?
be.
So they might flag it
We'll
as
have
a
to- we'll have to
risk
see.
for some reason.
Nefarious activity, yeah.
Yeah. But that's a great suggestion. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Jean. And I know it's been a little clunky, like I said, and without having an executive director on board, but yeah, the newspaper citing the alternate location is confusing. My understanding, at least for the immediate future, is we'll likely be holding them in this room, at least for a little while. At some point, we could talk about going back to Pullman, but that's probably not going to happen real quickly here. So this is most likely the location that's going to be held for the foreseeable future. And then when we do switch that, we're notifications at the meetings and such in advance and hopefully rectify some of these concerns. So, any other public comments? Brian? Okay, I'm not seeing any in virtual world. So we don't have any presentations or discussions today, but we'll go ahead and move on to unfinished business. The first bulleted item that we have is the executive director position. Trying to think where we left off from last time. We did make the announcement that Celine Accord is going to be our new executive director. Her first day will be July 11th, so that's coming up relatively quickly. I do want to thank Paul. He put together a nice press release that went out, I think it was the end of June. I know there was a Lewiston Tribune article
The Daily News picked it up as well.
The Daily News picked it up. I saw it in the Idaho Business Review too. So it's been floating around out there. So thank you, Paul, for doing that. Getting that out there. I know Ashley also pushed some things out on the PBAC website. So, so we're really looking forward to having Saline start. U of I has been super instrumental to the process as well. And I think we have all our ducks in a row generally for her to come in and start her first day. So
There's a hand.
yes, Gina,
That's your hand.
is that my hand? Oh,
yeah.
never mind. Sorry, Gina. You don't have your hand up.
I was
We're just trying to
napping.
make
Darn
sure
it.
everyone's paying attention today. Don't worry, we'll quiz somebody else later.
Okay, cool.
Are there
Thanks.
are there any questions regarding Saline or the new position or any discussion there? Okay, we will move on to our basin boundary modifications. I actually went back and watched our meeting from last time in full disclosure, but what kind of came out of that, I summarized a few different things. So I'm going to go through those for some of the folks that maybe weren't with us last week. But we were able to listen to John Bush give a really great presentation about the report that he put together, the proposal. It's titled Boundaries of the Palouse Basin Aquifer System in the Moscow-Pullman area, Idaho and Washington. He provided that to us in March of 2022. Kind of the big takeaways from our discussion following that at last month's meeting was that the group, there was quite a bit of consensus to look at finding a way to adopt that formally. Kind of a few key takeaways from my eyes. It's a reminder that it's a groundwater basin boundary. It's approximate. It's based off of, it's as we know it is now based off of various research purposes. Again, it's approximate. So those are the types of things we just want to keep in the back of our mind. I would look to see if we do have a quorum here today. So I'd look to see about getting some sort of motion associated with finding a way to adopt that. My recommendation would be finding a way to adopt that particular report. So we can put that out there on the website, when we have questions about it. We'll look at getting Saline to update the website based off of that, if it passes, if that's what the committee wants. We talked about putting together a press release, and I know Paul was willing to work through that and maybe have Steve Robichon help a little bit as far as technical numbers and nuances. But I did talk to Paul, and we were thinking we'd wait to make sure that that got adopted before we spent any time on that piece of it, but that would be a follow-up action item. We talked about reaching out to the city of Palouse, as well as Colfax, if we do adopt this, to kind of get in front of that and make sure that people aren't being blindsided. So those were the big takeaways that I had from our last meeting. If there's anything else that anyone else remembers, please speak now. And if anyone wants to act in any way, I would be interested to hear that as well. Yeah. Comments, thoughts?
I would, if no one has any comments, I would move that we adopt the report as presented, containing the boundary updates.
Okay.
This is Paul. I'd second that.
Okay. I'm hearing some seconding in the room. Comment?
I'm assuming we're moving to discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. I support this as long as it is sparkling clear in whatever we put out that it is the groundwater.
Mhm.
I think you're absolutely right.
And after having counsel on Tuesday night, going around and around about nomenclature and terminology and semantics and sophistry or whatever you want to call it, that it's very important that we make the message simple and clear that this is groundwater and it's, I don't know, separate from the aquifer as we've been evaluating it through X process or something, as simple as possible. And make sure that it is crystal clear, because I got people coming to me all the time and saying, hey, they paved that parking lot, that's screwing up the aquifer. And I don't know, have a good way to respond to that. So
yeah, we could have like a footnote that references the report when we put the figure up, or I mean,
But I think with the language that we use when we present it, I think we can get some good clarifying language in all of the releases and the public outreach documentation that emphasizes the difference between a surface water basin and a groundwater basin.
I love that language, yes, and those maps are great.
Mhm.
Those are terrific maps, yeah.
And that I think it's gonna take some care to deliver that message in a way that doesn't disenfranchise anyone too. I think we're not looking to put Colfax at arm's length, for example, or anyone that's, you know, it's a very blurry line around that boundary. And I think we want to communicate that.
What I would anticipate is with this motion of the adoption, that we would then task our communication subcommittee with generating a communication plan about this basin update that would then come back to the full committee for approval before we roll messaging out.
Okay. People like that idea?
Yes.
I like that idea.
I'm seeing head nods from people I can see. Okay.
So I'll just, I guess, Madam Chair, would you like a second motion about the second, or I can amend my first motion to include
Think
that?
you could amend your first motion to include
And I
that.
will amend my motion to include post-adoption public release of the new boundary, that the communication subcommittee will generate a communication plan that will then be approved in a subsequent meeting by the full committee before rollout to the public.
Is there a second?
Second
is a
that
second.
again.
Amen.
Okay, discussion on
Tyler,
that.
I want Tyler to repeat that. I'm joking.
So my motion, Gina, is that we adopt the report as presented by Dr. Bush, including the boundary update. Oh, are you kidding, Gina?
Gina's a troublemaker.
There were like three of us thought it was really funny. The rest of
Gotcha.
us are like, what? Yeah, I'm teasing, sorry. I'll go back to sleep now.
Well, a reminder that these are being recorded, so we can always go back and listen to Tyler's original words. I do have the question, so I know, I don't want to jump ahead to another piece. I think it would be nice in the report that Alta finalizes to have the updated basin boundary in it. So I guess I'm questioning a little bit what our timeline is for the communications subcommittee and when we realistically think that outreach plan would be completed. And maybe it
I guess
doesn't
it's a
matter.
relatively simple thing. I wouldn't anticipate, I think as a communication subcommittee, we can get together one time and, I mean, this is just a press release that's carefully worded, and then just a communication plan to the potentially impacted communities, Palouse and Colfax. And so I think that we can generate that in a single meeting. And so I would fully anticipate being able to return to the full body at next month's meeting. If we hold the meeting next
That was
month,
gonna
if
be my
not, it
other
would be
question.
August.
Do we want to give the responsibility to the communication subcommittee and let them run with it, or do we want to bring it back to a greater group? I guess that's my follow-up.
I suppose we could, that's not something that would need, I don't think, committee action. So I guess we could just have the communication subcommittee generate the materials and then distribute via email to the committee.
And we could have them
And then
share.
anybody
too.
could voice any concerns that they had via email if there was, since the July meeting is probably likely to be canceled.
I think the ground rules have pretty much been set, like, I mean, this is.
This is what we want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. My whole point to that question was, I think, however we can see this in a quicker process. No need to draw it out
I would like to
necessarily.
further amend my motion.
Okay, or we could vote on the original motion and you can make a new motion.
Well, I think it'll be easier if I amend it because it included coming back to the meeting.
Okay.
So I'll amend my motion to adopt the report from Dr. Bush that was presented in last month's meeting, including the basin boundary, task the communication subcommittee with generating a communication plan, which will then be distributed to PBAC members via email for any comments prior to distribution publicly.
Yes. All right.
I'm not saying it again,
Is there
Gina.
a second? Maybe Gina needs to do it.
I think it needs to be seconded by the same person that had seconded the first motion,
Would
the
be
original,
Paul.
motion, to do
I
it
think that-
legally.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tim.
And I will second it, but you're putting a lot of pressure on the communications subcommittee, Tyler.
I got
Just
faith
so
in
much
you, Paul,
pressure.
and I've got far
Feel
less
like-
faith in you, but we're gonna put it all on you.
Okay, well,
We
I
can
heard a
handle it.
second from Paul.
We can do it, Paul.
Yes.
I heard a nice second. Is there any further discussion on the amended motion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of Tyler's motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, fabulous news. Okay, thank you, Communications Subcommittee, as well as everyone here for a good discussion. We have a few other items here. We'll move on to new business. The first bulleted item that I have listed is the Latah County ARPA funding. So that's the American Rescue Plan Act. Back in July of last year, Corey had submitted a letter to Latah County for a request for some ARPA funds, and that was attached with the agenda. And I'm going to actually open it up to Paul to talk through that a little bit, because he's really been kind of spearheading and working through that process, as well as Rusty's been working with him. So I know we're in the process of putting together an agreement around that, and Latah County did agree to give roughly $50,000 to PBAC. And Paul, do you want to chime in with a little more specifics?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologize, I'm sitting in my car, Spokane.
If you can do it safely.
Yeah, no, I'm parked.
Okay.
In front of I'm not sure if this is a house of ill repute or what, but I'm okay. Hey, thank you. So yeah, this was a conversation that started last year at the budget hearing with Latah County. The discussion was around more outreach and engagement with our county residents around water conservation and what that vehicle might look like. So Corey essentially replicated what she had already done or was doing with the Palouse Conservation District with a water conservation outreach program in Whitman County. And so the proposal included a similar sort of schedule framework that we would also play out in Latah County. And unfortunately or fortunately, things drug out, but it took a while for the county to decide how they would distribute funds, and now they've come out with a proposed agreement. So we needed an entity to receive those funds, and then those funds would get dispersed for the program. And so I've got a framework I'm working on as far as what that looks like, how we would use these dollars inside Latah County for water conservation outreach and engagement. It could also marry really well with our alternative water supply effort and everything else that we do around messaging with the Palouse Basin. So it's just a really nice revenue stream for us to leverage for a lot of this kind of outreach effort and just education. We're seeing a lot of communities, rural communities, don't have water conservation programs. So at the very least, this would provide them some water conservation devices and some messaging. And so that's our intent. And again, nobody else is doing it in the county. I'm not suggesting PBAC should look for more things to do outside of their core focus, but this was just a great opportunity, and it really dovetails well into what we're already doing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Paul. Are there questions on this item?
No, I'm excited. This is good. It'll be nice to be able to extend some of the stuff to the county.
Yeah, thanks to the county. That's super great.
Yeah, Tom, thank you. That's really nice.
Yeah, I'm really glad we could do this. It's a great opportunity to be able to use the ARPA money this way.
And Madam Chair, just to follow up, so to follow the revenue, it like many of our grants or support, it will flow through the University of Idaho. I think it's right now in Office of Sponsored Projects, Rusty, correct? And then we would determine if we would just work out of the PBAC accounts with this funding, or if we would need to provide another fiscal agent like the city of Moscow or one of our other entities to disperse. I'm not sure. We'll figure out the kind of the end mechanics of that here shortly.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Paul.
Bet.
Okay. Okay. We will move on to our second new business item, which is our PBAC officer election. Our interagency agreement, I think, specifies that in June, we typically elect officers for the following year. So if you guys are tired of me forgetting to unmute the microphone, now's the time. But I'll open it up for discussion. So really, the discussion at this point is how we want our chair and vice chair to look this coming year. I see some hands already.
Oh, I guess the first question is, are current officers willing to serve again? I see a yes from Kara and a yes from Tyler.
I guess, yeah, and I think what Eileen's alluding to is a conversation that we've had over the last several years now. Over COVID, we had a Paul served for 2 years, and there had been discussions prior to that about the 1-year chairmanship time being a pretty quick turnaround. It really does, I can tell you that having done that, it feels like right as you're getting your feet underneath you and kind of understanding what's going on, it's switching over. And so there had been some discussion about it perhaps being a good idea to make those 2-year terms so that the vice chair has 2 years to get up to speed. The chair has 2 years to actually be in the position and get comfortable. And it helps us have a little bit more continuity, especially as we're really reaching some critical action phases for what we're doing. And I thought it worked well when Paul served as the chair for 2 years. And I would be in favor of making an amendment to our procedures to have it be a 2-year term. How we've traditionally done it is tried to swap sides of the border with the chair and vice chair. And then the vice chair generally would move into the chairmanship, and then we would nominate and elect a new vice chair. And so I guess what I'm proposing is maintaining those same principles and structure, but having it be 2-year terms rather than 1-year terms.
Yeah, and I can vouch for I've been with PBAC just a few years now, and it did take some time to figure out the chair position. So I can kind of support the 2-year discussion as well. My recommendation, like for the discussion, I support the 2-year terms. I don't know, we might have to ask Steve or Paul or Tyler might know how we would formally have to amend the bylaws. I would recommend if the committee was open and wanted to keep the current officers the way that they were now, based on the bylaws, we would vote us in for this year. I would recommend if the committee is for it, we look at getting those bylaws amended before the next round. So that I wouldn't necessarily be signing up for another 2 years on top of 1 year, if that makes sense. So, and maybe it's written to, in the odd years or whatever you're in right now.
Madam Chair, I'd support that. I think it's a separate issue, but I'd say for today, the business is to elect officers for the next year, but long term, we should probably look at the bylaws anyway for a few other things, make sure everything is current, how we conduct electronic meetings, everything else anyway. So we could just bring a set of proposed bylaw changes back to the committee.
Okay, I think that's a great suggestion.
So do we nominate to reinstate the current slate of officers? Okay. Is that our process?
If that's what you guys want to do.
So nominated.
Seconded.
Is there any further discussion?
You people in the room are really quick
no
at
one wants to
seconding.
be PBAC chair? No, I'm kidding.
You room people are really interested, are quick at seconding. It's hard to get in like the 3-second delay.
Okay, well, I guess maybe we'll take a vote here and find out if there's anyone not in favor. Okay, all those in favor of keeping the current officers as is for the following year, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, I see hands now. No, I'm kidding. Any opposed? No, not Tom. Okay, none of you guys are stuck with us for another year.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yes.
Okay, and we have one more decent discussion, and then we're gonna have a quick meeting today, I think, because it's beautiful outside and it's summer. It feels like it should be summer. So our next item is our fiscal year 23 entity assessments. I did spend a little bit of time today putting together a document. It might be a little clunky. I'm gonna see if Steve can pull it up for me, because it helps me, and I think it'll help the group and just be a good reminder. There we go. Okay. So I'll see if I can kind of work through this a little bit. And as I get talking, Steve, you can kind of scroll down if it makes sense. So the committee is financed by the various entities. So this table here summarizes, we have an operations admin budget as well as a research budget. And these were the amounts that were allotted for last year's fiscal year. So you can see the major entities, Pullman, Moscow, the two universities, so WSU and U of I, we pay $27,000, or this is what we did last year, into the admin budget, as well as $20,000 into the research budget. And I'll mention that just a little bit more down below. But then our two counties are at $6,750 for the admin. And then we do have the city of Palouse listed. I have a couple asterisk items there. Steve was really great and reminded me that that's technically a voluntary contribution from the city of Palouse. So they don't have an ongoing commitment. And actually, he and I were talking back and forth about what we've seen in from last year, and we actually haven't received a payment yet from Palouse. So I'll see if I can rectify that, make sure Corey sent it out. It's possible something could have gotten stuck in the like house mailbox or something along those lines. So I'll be looking into that one, but that's why those asterisks are there. I do have a couple asterisks next to the U of I. We had a discussion about this a few months ago, and U of I for the last few years has not been contributing to the research fund. I'm optimistic we can start up some conversations. We talk about a research plan, those sorts of things. So, but that's there just as a reminder. If we scroll down, a little bit of history regarding the admin contributions. So actually, the first time the entities contributed was in 2003. And Steve, if I say something wrong, you can definitely chime in and correct me. When the 2003 interagency agreement came together, at that time, it was actually $8,000 per year for the major entities, $2,000 a year for the other parties. So again, the counties, I think Colfax was in it at that time. But in 2007, there was a vote and there was a resolution to change that. And the major entities agreed to pay a significantly higher amount at the 20,000 and the other parties as well going up to the 5,000. What you see in the table that I listed above actually is a result of a 2019 change. So that's actually, it had been what, 12 years since we had seen a change at that point. And I was involved with that discussion and remember the group saying it had been a good move. And there was a lot of discussion too around trying to make more regular updates. Doesn't mean we necessarily have to this year by any means, but I just wanted to get a little bit into that history. As far as the research contributions go, just scroll down just a little bit, Steve. So these started as part of what was called the OK project, the Oshinsky-Keller project in 1999. At that time, the major entities, so the universities and the cities, agreed to pay $20,000 for 2 years. After the 2 years were up, the major entities agreed to keep going with that funding on an annual basis. And then it sounds like they actually did that just voluntarily, but by 2007, there was an addendum to the interagency agreement by those 4 major entities that stipulated that annual commitment of $20,000. So that's how we got to basically what you see in the table above. And we would look to, once Saline gets started in July, I think traditionally we send out invoices end of July, early August, so somewhere in that time frame. So that'll be something that we get her going on right away. But we do want to have a discussion about if these assessments are still what we want them to be for this upcoming fiscal year. And I made a note here that my understanding is if we did want to raise or lower them, we would need a 2/3 majority vote of all members of PBAC with voting rights.
So are we using the word contributions and assessments interchangeably?
I am, but maybe I shouldn't be. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that because it's an interlocal agreement, I don't know, I suppose assessment might be the more appropriate term since it is based on an agreement that we've all agreed to contribute to. And so then we're assessed by PBAC as an entity.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was going to throw out that when we raised the contributions, assessments, whatever the proper term is, in 2019 to 27,000, that was the intent. There was some discussion about not raising it that much. And the idea then was that we wouldn't have to raise it again for some time. 3 years on, I think is
Is ideal.
is still kind of in that window, I would expect we'd be good to go for a couple more years before we need to reassess that.
Right,
amount.
and you know, typically, traditionally, so I know the city of Pullman, you know, most of us need to go back to our, you know, our council members are expected, you know, our boards and get that approval. So we wouldn't act on any of this today necessarily. I think in 2019, we talked about it, we came up with a plan, and then we came back and put together a resolution and pushed things out that way. I think with our new, my personal opinion is with our new executive director coming in, give her some time to look over the budget, stew over that. We had discussions as we were working through the hiring process about how we do presumably have funds to, you know, take care of that position for a couple of years. And we'll, you know, we have a lot of things coming up. So my personal suggestion is that we keep the assessments as they are presently, and we look to revisit it next year. I do like the idea of occasional bumps, smaller amounts, so they're more digestible. But
I mean, when you talk about revisiting it next year, you would revisit it next year to be implemented maybe the following fiscal year.
correct.
Yeah, because that would ease the, you know, we're talking an additional 2 years on the cycle and then approved in the beginning of next fiscal cycle.
Yeah, I think we could go either way on it. So we'll send out invoices for the coming year. And a lot of times, you know, we get the payments in at varying times of the year. So we have all of our payments in from 2022 or from this last year. Those came in between, I don't know, December of 2021 and March of 2022. So it's kind of however we want to look at it and pitch it, but we do need to get invoices out for the coming year. And typically, I have the bylaws, it does generally say when those are due.
Yeah. Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm in favor of maintaining our current assessment for this year as well. It is, we obviously transitioned to a full-time ED, and I think that as we did that, we did look at the math on that, make sure that we could float that position with the current reserves for a couple of years. And I think Jeff's right in that, I think that it is a nice balance for us of not waiting 12 years and having a huge bump, but we did do that increase with the idea that would buy us some time. So I think that it would be good for us to get the new ED in, look at the need, you know, we're still maintaining on the books the technical advisor and Steve's position, but then also specifically, we still have the social media and outreach, Ashley, who's still on the books. And while it's not a huge expenditure, it still is an expenditure that adds up over the course of the year. So I'd like to get saline in, let the dust settle a little bit and figure out where we're at financially and let the budget committee take a hard look at that. And then we can determine if there is a need next year to have that conversation for the following year's assessments, which would put us 5 years out from the previous increase at the very least, which I think would probably be appropriate.
Yeah. Okay, Eileen?
Has our research demands dollar-wise gone up significantly or changed, or do they look like they're gonna stay about the same?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to wait. Corey had put together a budget report, and without her, we haven't had
I mean, really, the research dollars have been spent down, and they're still, they're pretty healthy in my opinion, but I think that was the point of coming back to U of I from the standpoint is what is the future research spend down or what we're looking to do to build that up.
I think for this year, I think we have enough of a research accumulation that as we move forward with the alternate supply plan, especially with things like, you know, the state of Idaho has money in the budget for further alternatives in this year's budget. And so I think that some of those things are likely to coalesce. And so I'm comfortable with keeping the research assessment as is. We can take a look at that in the future. And if there is a big spend down and we need to accumulate more funds for which we can't find grant money or otherwise, then it may be wise to look at an increase, but I think we'll be fine for this year, given the accumulations that we currently have.
Yeah, I like the word accumulation as opposed to the word reserve.
Right.
Just for the record, just to have it out there, I would be willing to explore the community sentiment in Pullman about bumping this up sooner than 5 years. I think the need is great. I think the mood in Pullman might be favorable, more favorable to this than what we're being pretty conservative here in the room, because we got a lot of people saying, why aren't you doing anything? Which I hate. I really,
Well,
so
I think
just
that
for
to your-
purposes of conversation.
Yeah, I think to your point, that's generally where some folks have asked the questions like, what's next? You know, and so I think from that standpoint, what you're talking about is presenting like, well, this is what our action plan is going to be. And so I think that's the one we need. I'm speaking from the ULI perspective, but that would largely help guide what the future direction is. And it really is an accumulation because we don't have, this is what we get annually. And, you know, it's all carry forward until we spend it.
And I think that with the new ED coming on, with completing the alternate water supply study and identifying next steps in that process, that's all going to be very tangible progress pieces that we can very much talk to the community about. But none of those things in the short term would require an increased assessment at this point. And I think when we have a more formulated plan based on those things happening, then we can go forward with something more tangible. So given that, I would move that we maintain our assessments for the upcoming year at the current levels for all parties. Second.
So we have a second from Rusty. Any questions, discussion from virtual world? Because I know it's hard when you're not in this room.
Madam Chair, I'll jump in there and just add one note, and that is the research subcommittee has been working with the WSU research team on the hydraulic model. And we've got some feedback from them, and we still need to meet as a subcommittee and talk about next steps for that effort. And that may impact the discussion on how much we need for research dollars. But yeah, that's going to be a big discussion.
Yeah,
That'll be cool.
that's a good comment. Thank you, Sean. All right. Okay. All those in favor of Tyler's motion to maintain the current assessments for the coming fiscal year, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, we just have our subcommittee report updates. We talked a little bit about budget. I don't think we have a budget update.
No, I mean, really kind of what you guys as presented today. I mean, what I did make a note here to, I'm going to meet with Pam Hilliard just to get an idea of what kind of fund balances we have remaining in that, and I can report that out the next meeting.
I think that'd be great.
Saline should be, because we won't meet in July, correct?
We have that down below, but tentatively there's,
Okay.
that's on the table to like possibly be canceled, yes. Okay, communications, Paul, anything new?
Madam Chair, you know, we've been continuing to push social media with Ashley doing a really good job. She and I are talking about maybe a campaign later this summer, more awareness around that, and put together some sort of incentive or prize for just more awareness and engagement on some of those social media platforms. We'll work on the press release for the basin boundaries, as well as some other, you know, I think we'll probably push something out prior to the water summit about once we finalize the alternative water study, we'll want to put some media around that as well. So again, we've got some good things coming up as well as far as communications. The SEG has not met. We're sort of in, let's wait for the committee to get their eyes on the alternative water supply study and then make their final comments, and then we will push it out to the SEG as well and get some feedback from them. And then by fall, we'll start really re-engaging with the SEG on a more regular basis. So that is my report.
Okay, thank you, Paul. You're not at all busy. Hope you could sense the sarcasm. Okay, research. I know, Sean, you just kind of mentioned, I think, what your update probably is, but anything else to add?
Yeah, nothing much more to add than that, other than I'll be reaching out to the research subcommittee to schedule that next discussion and then report back to the larger group.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move to other reports and announcements. So we do have the alternative water supply project workshop coming up. Everybody should have gotten a calendar invite for that. I've mostly gotten acceptance back, except from you, Brian, who is retiring soon. So congratulations there. Next week, that ought to be another announcement. So anyways, it's looking like we're gonna have a good group of people. I would encourage everybody again to read back over the report. If you haven't already, make sure you read through that before you come to the workshop. That will save Alta a lot of time, and I think it'll provide a lot of really good context. And I know I'm just looking forward to it. It should be pretty good. With that in mind, I would put out there the concept of canceling the July meeting, especially since the workshop will be right around there. So we'll already be meeting for a good chunk of time. So I just want to see if anyone has any big issues with that.
I would move that we cancel the July 2022 meeting.
Okay, is there a second? I'm gonna let someone in virtual world second if they want to.
Oh, Gina got it.
Gina, woo, okay, she got it. All those in favor of canceling the July regular PBAC meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I don't think we have any opposed. With that, I'll kind of open it up to the good of the order. Looks like, what is it, Art Walk tonight, Tyler?
It is our walk tonight.
Art Walk tonight, so lots of things going on.
We had, you may have seen it in the paper. We put out a press release, some social media outreach that got picked up that was really productive about the very wet spring that we've had. Since Moscow started doing opening and closing irrigation seasons, the latest we've ever opened irrigation season was June 15th, which we've obviously surpassed now. And I'm hoping to not open it until at least next weekend. So we'll keep an eye on that, but that's really positive with our system. That's about 1 million gallons per day this time of year that we save by not turning that system on. So every day we don't turn that on has a big impact. You know, just for context, 1 million gallons is about how much a family of 4 would use over a 10-year period. So it's a chunk of water each day that we're able to delay that. And it's actually reflecting in the pumping numbers. There's always a tendency to be a little bit skeptical and say, well, just because we haven't started irrigation season doesn't mean people aren't using water outdoors, but our numbers are consistent with our winter pumping numbers. So we're still looking really good. So we're really hopeful that we'll have some very good pumping numbers this year. If we continue with this type of pattern.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tyler. Any see, how did the county fare with the rain earlier this year? I know there was some flooding in Blues.
A lot of flooding up near Flanagan Creek.
Oh, right, as well. I saw that road was blocked off. Okay, well, seems like we all fared, but
levels are going down.
okay, receding slowly but surely. Okay, any other comments for the good of the order? If
Sarah,
not,
I have one. This is Steve.
Yes, please. We haven't heard you much today, Steve.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'd like to thank Brian for his years and years of dedication to PBAC, because he's been involved with PBAC for a long time, and behind the scenes at UI, he's taken care of a lot of issues during that time that would have been major headaches if he hadn't been there to do that. So I'd like to thank him for all of his contributions over the years to PBAC.
Give a little round of applause. Thanks, Brian. He was also here. He had everything all set up for us, and I still failed to unmute the button. But anyways, it has been really great having you involved. So thank you, Steve. I'd take a motion to adjourn if anyone wants to put that out there. So moved.
There you go.
we
Second.
go. Seconded. All right. All those in favor of adjourning for the day, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We will see you in late July.
You're walking tonight?
Yeah. We changed the store hours. We're gonna be open.